Hello 8A. In this video, I'll give you an overview of what Lab 8 is about. Lab 8 is the precursor of our PSA 8, where you're going to create your own class in that PSA. But in this lab, we'll primarily work on modifying one of the classes that you should have seen from the book. It's the student class. Okay, and this lab has three components. Part A, you're going to try to add a field to the student class. For part B, you're going to try to add in new getters and setters to modify the field that you added in part A. For part C, you will basically throw in a new method called add grade. What this new method does is to basically add one extra grade for the student. Okay, so you'll need 4 files to copy it from the public folder into your own folder. Okay, so I will go over student.java first because this is kind of the class file, and then we'll look at part A, part B, and part C quickly. Okay, so in student class, the student class has two fields. Number one is a string. This string is used to store the full name of the student, and also another field is a double array, and this double array will be used to store all the grades of a student. So when you look at the starter files for this lab, the student has two fields. The student class has two fields, name and grade array. And then it also has three constructors, I believe. Yes, three constructors. The first one is the default constructor. So the default constructor takes no parameter, and it's just going to try to initialize the name as Joe student and create a double array of size 10 and assign it to this grade array field. Okay, so this is the default constructor. And then you have a constructor that just takes a name. So if you give me a name, then I'm going to use this name parameter to initialize my instance variable. And similarly, like before, I would just create an empty double array. But if you give me both the name as well as the array that you have created, then I'm going to use the parameter array to initialize the object's grade array. Similarly, using the name parameter to initialize the object's name. Those are the three constructors. Okay, and then you have a few methods. There is something called getters, right? Getters, the purpose of getters is to give back the values of the instance variables of a certain object. So because most of the time the data are private, so all the fields are private. In other words, an object can't access those instance variables directly. So we need getters and setters to access and change those fields if necessary. So if you look at it, the first getter is this getName. What this method does is just return the name of the object, of the calling object. So the return type is string. This is a getter. Similarly, you can set the name. So if one of the objects calls setName and also give a string, then this string will be used to change the name of the calling object. So you can see this .name, it means the name instance variable of the calling object will be changed into this string parameter. Okay. Similarly, for getGrade, you can get a grade from an index. So what this does is, if you give me an index, I'm going to tell you the index grade from the grade array of the calling object. So this is one of the getters. Okay, it's going to return one double value from the grade array. You can also set the grade array. If you give me an entire array, I will use this entire array to change my instance variable, this grade array. Okay. The last setter is set grade. If you give me an index and also a new grade, basically the corresponding position in the grade array of the calling object will be changed into this new grade. So I think altogether you are looking at 5 setters and getters, okay? And like what I just explained, the methods for setters and getters, their purpose is to give you the value of the instance variable of the calling object or change them. Okay. The last thing in this student in this starter file for the student is toString. Most of the Java class has this toString method. What it does is to say if we want to display the content of an object from this class, the formatting of the display of the content should be like this. So student object named with the name, and the average is the average score of all the grades. So obviously there's this get average method from the student class. If you look at the get average, it's gonna basically calculate the average of all the scores in the grade array using this for loop. Okay, so I think we all know how to do this. So get average, in fact, is one of the methods that a student object can do to give you the average score of that student, because it returns a double, right? So this is the student.java, the student class, which is kind of the most important, I think, file for this lab. Okay. And for part A, what you need to do is you need to first insert a new field for a student. I think you will need to insert a name. You're not going to insert a name. You're going to insert a major of a student. So a student already has the name, has the grade array, and your job is to insert another field called major. What is the major of the student? Because you just inserted a new field, many other things need to be changed. So this is your job in part A. Insert a major and then make the corresponding changes in the student.java class. In part A of this lab, you added a new field major, and then you changed the constructors. In part B, what you need to do is you need to create new getter and setter for the new field you added in part A. This is the primary job for part B. Okay, so to play with the getter and setters for this new field. The last part of this lab is part C, where you're gonna add a new method in student class, and this new method is called addGrade. What this method does is it needs one parameter. So once you pass this double parameter, what this addGrade will do is it's going to insert this new grade at the end of the grade array. So for example, if initially the student has 3 grades, and then the student object calls addGrade, and what's going to happen is the student will have 4 grades. This new grade will be the 4th grade in the grade array. Okay. So this is part C, and this will be the end of the lab. Okay. And for the starter files, lab A, B, and C, usually the setup is they won't compile until you make the correct changes in student.java. Okay. So this is lab 8. Have fun.